Books pressed against his chest, Noah Temple braced himself against the faceless tide of urbanites rushing past. 22 years of life hadn't prepared him for the systematic dismantling of his confidence that occurred just hours ago. The rejection still stung fresh as the autumn air slicing between skyscrapers. His carefully prepared notes, the ones he'd refined over 3 sleepless nights, remained unshared, unheard, beneath the weight of the leather-bound Bible his grandfather had gifted him before passing. The theology department at Westmore University had assured him this interfaith symposium would welcome diverse perspectives. They were wrong. Noah adjusted his plaid shirt collar against the cooling evening breeze and shifted his backpack. The setting sun cast long shadows through the urban canyon, catching on windows like flashes of divine disappointment. He hadn't even been allowed to speak. The symposium coordinator had pulled him aside 15 minutes before his scheduled time. "We've had to make some adjustments to accommodate our keynote speakers," she'd said, not quite meeting his eyes. "I'm afraid we won't have time for your segment on historical perspectives of redemption in crisis." Yet somehow, they'd found room for 3 additional speakers promoting views that treated faith as nothing more than an anthropological curiosity. The message was clear. His traditional theological perspective was unwelcome at this inclusive gathering. A woman brushed past, nearly colliding with him, her eyes fixed on her phone. Nobody stopped in this city. Nobody noticed. Noah felt invisible, his rejection complete. The notebook in his hand, the one containing 12 carefully crafted points and 7 scriptural references, might as well have been blank. His phone vibrated. A text from his roommate, Marcus. How'd it go? Noah stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. The symposium had been his chance to honor his grandfather's memory, to speak the words the old man had encouraged him to share. The bookmark peeking from his Bible, handcrafted leather with 2 Corinthians 12:9, embossed in fading gold, caught his eye, his grandfather's favorite verse. Noah had planned to reference it in his conclusion. He tucked the phone away without answering. What could he say? That the academic community his grandfather had once thrived in now considered their shared beliefs antiquated. That the 3 years Noah had spent studying theology seemed increasingly pointless in a world that regarded faith as irrelevant. Ahead, the subway entrance beckoned, a portal back to his apartment where he could nurse his wounded pride in private. But something held him back. The setting sun, the crowded street, the weight of his undelivered message, it all coalesced into a moment of suspended certainty. Noah found a bench near a small urban garden and sat, placing his Bible beside him. He opened his notebook, rereading his introduction. When tragedy strikes, our philosophical frameworks are tested against the unforgiving anvil of suffering, words that would remain unheard. A pigeon landed nearby, pecking at something invisible between the pavers. Noah envied its simple determination, its uncomplicated purpose. "Excuse me," a voice interrupted. "Is this seat taken?" Noah looked up to see an older man gesturing to the space beside him. Without waiting for an answer, the man sat, sighing with relief. "These old legs aren't what they used to be," he said, offering a smile that creased his weathered face. "I'm Joseph." "Noah," he replied, shifting his books to make room. Joseph nodded toward the Bible. "Theology student," Noah hesitated. "Is it that obvious?" "The combination of the Bible, the notebook, and the look of someone who's just had their beliefs challenged," Joseph said. "I recognize the signs. I was a pastor for 40 years. Were you ever made to feel your message was unwanted?" Noah asked before he could stop himself. Joseph laughed softly. "Only about once a week, sometimes more during election seasons." He studied Noah's face. "Symposium at the Grayson Center?" Noah blinked in surprise. "How did you know?" "I saw the posters. Almost went myself, but at my age, I've heard most arguments before." Joseph's eyes twinkled. "They didn't let you speak, did they?" "No," Noah admitted. "Apparently my perspective on faith having actual relevance in modern crisis response wasn't diverse enough. Ah, Joseph nodded. The great irony of our age. Diversity that excludes tradition. He pointed to Noah's notebook. What were you going to say? For the next 20 minutes, Noah outlined his presentation while Joseph listened attentively. As Noah spoke, his confidence returned. The words flowed as they were meant to at the symposium. When he finished, Joseph was silent for a moment. That's a message people need to hear, Joseph finally said. Perhaps not today, and perhaps not in that forum, but its time will come. He stood, joints creaking. Don't give up on it, Noah Temple. The right moment finds the prepared messenger. Before Noah could respond, Joseph had merged back into the flow of pedestrians, disappearing as suddenly as he'd arrived. The encounter left Noah feeling strangely comforted. He gathered his things and headed toward the subway. The sting of rejection slightly dulled. Maybe there was purpose in preparation, even when the audience wasn't ready. 3 days later, Noah was in the university library, researching for his thesis, when a sound like distant thunder rumbled through the building. Books trembled on shelves. Students looked up from their studies, exchanging confused glances. Then phones began buzzing simultaneously, the city's emergency alert system. Noah's screen illuminated with the message, "Building collapse at 5th and Westmore. Avoid area. Emergency services responding." 5th and Westmore, just blocks from the Grayson Center, where the symposium had been held. Noah gathered his materials quickly, suddenly remembering that Marcus worked part-time at the coffee shop on that corner. He tried calling but got no answer. The library was already emptying as students rushed to check on friends or witness the unfolding situation. Noah joined the exodus, hurrying toward the disaster site, praying Marcus wasn't there today. The scene that greeted him was chaos incarnate. What had once been the 12-story Westmore Plaza was now a grotesque sculpture of broken concrete and twisted metal. Dust hung in the air like fog, coating everything in ghostly gray. Emergency vehicles' lights pulsed through the haze, their sirens creating a dissonant chorus of alarm. Noah scanned the gathering crowd for Marcus, relief washing over him when he spotted his roommate helping an elderly woman away from the scene. Marcus saw him and waved, indicating he was okay. "What happened?" Noah asked when he reached them. "Nobody knows for sure," Marcus said, his voice hoarse from dust. "1 minute I was serving lattes. The next everything started shaking. We all ran outside just before it came down." He gestured to the woman beside him. "This is Mrs. Chen. She was in our shop." "My daughter," the woman said, her voice tight with panic. "She works on the 3rd floor. I don't see her among the evacuated." Noah felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "Have you told the emergency services?" Mrs. Chen nodded, tears cutting tracks through the dust on her face. "They took her name, but there are so many." "I'll help you look," Noah promised, guiding her toward the medical staging area where survivors were being treated. As they searched, Noah became aware of the scale of the tragedy. Dozens injured, an unknown number still trapped. Emergency workers moved with urgent precision, but the building's unstable remains made rescue difficult and dangerous. They couldn't find Mrs. Chen's daughter among the survivors. The waiting was excruciating. Noah stayed with her, offering what comfort he could. As hours passed, more people gathered, family members seeking information, onlookers drawn by morbid curiosity, media crews documenting the unfolding tragedy. Noah recognized several faces from the symposium among the crowd, including Dr. Eliza Harmon, the coordinator who had cut his presentation. She was speaking with emergency officials, her usual composure fractured by concern. "My colleague is in there," she was saying. "Professor Whitaker, 7th floor, please. He has a heart condition." The fire chief was explaining the difficulties of reaching the upper floors when Noah approached. "Dr. Harmon?" She turned, recognition flickering across her face. "Mr. Temple, this isn't a good time." "I know," he said gently. "I'm here with a woman whose daughter is missing. Is there any information about survivors from the 3rd floor?" Dr. Harmon's professional distance softened slightly. "They've reached the 4th. but the third floor collapsed badly. They're bringing in specialized equipment. She hesitated. Are you here as a reporter? No, Noah said. Just trying to help. She studied him for a moment, then nodded toward a nearby tent. They're organizing volunteers over there. They need people to help with family support. Noah thanked her and returned to Mrs. Chen, relaying what little information he had before guiding her to the family support area. There, he found himself putting his training to unexpected use. While other volunteers offered blankets and coffee, Noah offered something else. A listening ear, a comforting word, a prayer for those who wanted it. As night fell, the rescue operation continued under powerful floodlights. The death toll stood at 7, with 33 injured and 21 still unaccounted for. Among the missing were Mrs. Chen's daughter Lily and Professor Whitaker. Noah had just finished helping distribute sandwiches when Dr. Harmon approached him again. Your assistance has been noticed, she said, her voice subdued. Several families mentioned your name to the coordinator. Noah shrugged. I'm just doing what anyone would. Not anyone, she countered. You have a way with the families. They respond to you. She hesitated. Some of them are asking if you would lead a prayer service for the missing. The request caught Noah off guard. A prayer service? Here? Dr. Harmon nodded. Not everyone wants it, of course, but enough do. She looked uncomfortable. I told them you're a theology student. Noah thought of his rejected symposium presentation, his carefully crafted words about faith in times of crisis. Was this what Joseph had meant about the right moment finding the prepared messenger? I'd be honored, he said finally, but only if it's open to everyone, regardless of their beliefs. No pressure, no exclusion. Of course, Dr. Harmon agreed. 7 o'clock by the memorial wall. The memorial wall had appeared organically, a section of construction fencing where people had begun posting photos of the missing, along with messages of hope. By 7, nearly 40 people had gathered there, a diverse collection of family members, rescue workers taking brief breaks, and local residents. Noah approached without his notes, without his prepared speech. This moment called for something different. He carried only his grandfather's Bible, the worn bookmark still marking 2 Corinthians. Thank you for coming, he began simply. I'm not here to tell you what to believe or how to process this tragedy. I'm here because many of us find comfort in coming together, in acknowledging our shared humanity in the face of suffering. He saw Dr. Harmon watching from the edge of the gathering, her arms crossed, but her expression open. Some of you asked for prayer, and we'll do that. Others might prefer a moment of silent reflection, and that's equally valuable. What matters is that we're here, together, holding space for hope. Noah opened his Bible to where the bookmark lay. My grandfather loved this passage. It speaks to finding strength in our most vulnerable moments. He read softly, My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. He closed the book. Tonight, we all feel weak, helpless. But in coming together, in supporting one another, there is a kind of strength that transcends our individual limitations. What followed wasn't the formal prayer service some might have expected. Instead, Noah facilitated a circle of shared hope, inviting those who wished to speak the names of their missing loved ones, to share stories, to express their fears and their faith, whatever form it took. Mrs. Chen spoke of her daughter's recent promotion. A firefighter described the courage he'd witnessed in the rescue teams. A young man shared how a stranger had helped him escape the collapsing building. Dr. Harmon, surprising everyone including herself, spoke of Professor Whitaker's dedication to his students. When all who wished to speak had done so, Noah offered a simple prayer that acknowledged the diverse beliefs present while focusing on their common humanity and hope. As the gathering dispersed, many approached him with thanks, including some who had identified themselves as non-religious. That wasn't what I expected, Dr. Harmon said when most had gone. It wasn't preachy. Faith at its best isn't about preaching. Noah replied. It's about presence, about finding meaning even in our darkest moments. She regarded him thoughtfully. Perhaps we misjudged your message. Before Noah could respond, a commotion arose from the building site. Rescuers were emerging with a survivor, a young woman, dusty but conscious. Mrs. Chen's cry of recognition told Noah it was Lily. He watched their tearful reunion, a moment of joy amid so much sorrow. As dawn approached, Noah remained at the site, catching brief naps on a cot in the volunteer tent, but mostly helping wherever needed. Around 6 in the morning, another survivor was found. Professor Whitaker, trapped in a pocket created by his desk and a fallen beam. Though injured, he was alive. Dr. Harmon found Noah as the professor was being loaded into an ambulance. He asked for you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. He wants to talk to you when he's stable. Noah nodded, too exhausted for questions. I found something, she continued, holding out a dust-covered paper. It was in Peter's, Professor Whitaker's pocket. Somehow it survived. Noah took the folded sheet and carefully opened it. It was a program from the symposium, creased and stained. But what caught his attention was the handwritten note in the margin next to his cancelled presentation. Follow up with Temple. Perspective valuable for disaster ethics paper. He was going to contact you, Dr. Harmon explained. He thought your research might complement his work on ethical frameworks in crisis response. Noah stared at the note, processing its implication. The rejection hadn't been as complete as he'd thought. At least one person had seen value in his perspective. There's something else, Dr. Harmon said. The city's organizing a memorial service for those who didn't survive, and a recognition ceremony for the volunteers. They've asked if you would speak at both. Me? Why? Because people respond to you, Noah. Your presence these past 40 hours has meant something. She hesitated. Your message, delivered in action rather than theory, has resonated, even with skeptics like me. Noah thought of Joseph's words on the bench. The right moment finds the prepared messenger. I'd be honored, he said finally. But I have a request. Name it. The symposium. Would you consider rescheduling it? Not just mine, but all the presentations that were interrupted by this tragedy. After sufficient time has passed, of course. Dr. Harmon considered this. A symposium on faith and meaning in the wake of disaster, with perspectives from various traditions, including yours? She nodded slowly. Yes, I think that would be appropriate, and well attended. 3 weeks later, Noah stood before a packed auditorium at the Grayson Center. The building collapse had claimed 12 lives in total, with 47 injured, but it had also revealed unexpected strengths in the community. Among those seated in the front row were Mrs. Chen and Lily, now recovered except for a healing arm fracture. Beside them sat Professor Whitaker, still using a wheelchair, but improving daily. Dr. Harmon had taken a seat in the center, her posture attentive. Noah placed his grandfather's Bible on the podium, the bookmark now fraying slightly from frequent handling. He looked out at the diverse audience, family members of victims and survivors, rescue workers, community leaders, students, and faculty from multiple faith traditions and none at all. 3 weeks ago, a structure that seemed permanent crumbled in minutes, he began. But what didn't crumble was our capacity for compassion, for courage, for finding meaning even in tragedy. He didn't use his original presentation. That moment had passed. Instead, he spoke from experience now, about how community transcends difference in times of crisis, about how faith manifests in action rather than merely in words. My grandfather used to tell me that true theology isn't found in books alone, but in how we live our beliefs when tested, Noah continued. In those dark hours at the collapse site, I witnessed theology in its purest form, not as academic discourse, but as hands reaching into rubble, as strangers comforting one another, as hope refusing to yield to despair. As he spoke, Noah noticed a familiar figure standing at the back of the auditorium, Joseph, the man from the bench, listening with a gentle smile. Their eyes met briefly in mutual recognition before Noah continued. The question before us isn't whether faith has relevance in modern crisis response. The collapse answered that definitively. The real question is, how do we carry the spirit of unity we found in tragedy forward into everyday life? How do we remain awake to our shared humanity without requiring disaster to remind us? When he finished speaking, the applause was genuine. But more meaningful to Noah were the conversations that followed, with people of all beliefs and backgrounds, each finding something valuable in his message, not because it aligned with their existing views, but because it acknowledged the complexity of human experience. Professor Whitaker approached after most had left. "Your grandfather would be proud," he said, extending his hand. "I knew him, you know. We disagreed on almost everything, but I always respected his intellectual honesty." Noah blinked in surprise. "You knew my grandfather?" "Thomas Temple was impossible to forget," Whitaker smiled. "Stubborn as they come, but never unkind. You have his way with words." As they talked, Dr. Harmon joined them. "The university is establishing a community resilience initiative," she explained, "bringing together practical disaster response training with philosophical and spiritual resources. We'd like you to be involved, Noah." Later, as Noah gathered his materials, he found Joseph waiting nearby. "You found your moment," the older man observed. "Or it found me," Noah replied. "I still don't understand why people wanted to hear what I had to say." Joseph gestured toward the now empty auditorium. "Because you weren't just prepared with words, but with presence. You didn't lecture the suffering, you walked alongside them." He smiled. "That's always been the most effective theology." As they walked together toward the exit, Noah noticed his grandfather's bookmark had fallen to the floor. He bent to retrieve it, the gold lettering catching the light. "My power is made perfect in weakness." Perhaps that was the message all along. Not that faith provides easy answers in crisis, but that it creates space for strength to emerge precisely where we feel most fragile. Not in grand declarations, but in simple presence. Not in immunity from suffering, but in finding meaning within it. Outside, the autumn air had turned cooler. The city continued its relentless pace, pedestrians rushing past, traffic flowing around construction barriers. But something had shifted. Noah no longer felt invisible among the urban tide. "Will you speak again?" Joseph asked, as they paused at the corner. Noah looked down at his grandfather's Bible, at the notes he'd completely rewritten, at the bookmark that had traveled with him through rejection and tragedy and unexpected purpose. "Yes," he said with quiet certainty. "I think I will."